You're listening to Authentic Torah. This is going to be an unbelievable chiddush to many of the people that don't know it, and if you do know it, then maybe it's not such a good chiddush, and you might hear Dovi in the background. This is from the Aruch Hashulchan, Siman Reish Nun Vav. So the Aruch Hashulchan was someone that he was a rabbi of a synagogue, a very, very great rabbi that lived in the 1800s. He was nifter. He died in the year 1908, and he wrote Sfarim, a lot of Sfarim, holy books about the Jewish law, and he did this in a very comprehensive way, which includes a lot of times feeling and goes back down to the sources for everything, and concludes with a clear, almost always with a clear-cut law that we are to follow. So this is in Siman Reish Nun Vav. This is a paragraph, or this is 256. In the laws of the Sabbath, Hilchot Shabbos. Keshahayu Yisrael al mechonas hayu token shesh tkiyos be'erev Shabbos. When Klal Yisrael, or when they're gathered together, when the Jewish people were gathered together, they would blow the shofar 6 tkiyos on erev Shabbos, Aruch Chatzos. So, who has heard of this? Has anybody here heard of this? Anyone in my audience here has heard of it? They would blow the shofar before Shabbos. Now there's a Shabbos siren in Eretz Yisrael. In Israel you have a Shabbos siren, which then got replaced with music, I think. But apparently at one time they would blow the shofar. And this is what it says. V'lav dafka tekiya. It wasn't specifically a tekiya, which goes like, ooh, okay, but tekiya kalul hakol. Okay, this is how they would blow it. I'll just translate into the English. They would blow it as tekiya, trua, tekiya. A trua is 9 sounds followed by a tekiya. If I have something which I'm able to demonstrate on the phone. Tekiya. Teruah. Tekiya Gedola. Tekiya trua, okay. Tekiya trua, tekiya trua, tekiya. They had tekiyos. Okay, these tekiyos, these blowing of the shofar, is like a sign announcing it's time to get ready for Shabbos. Now, according to the Rambam, at the end of the 5th parak, the 5th chapter, law number 20, he says also when the Sabbath was over, they would also blow the shofar, which is a ram's horn. They would blow the ram's horn, the shofar, after Tzeis HaKochavim, after the stars came out. 3 medium stars came out, approximately 45 minutes to an hour after sunset. This was done to inform people that you're now allowed, right now it is permissible to do all of the activities which it was prohibited to do on the Sabbath. You are now allowed to do malacha. You're allowed to do work, but work, malacha doesn't actually mean work over here. It doesn't mean like work. It's very specific. There's a very specific definition of what malacha means, and a lot of the laws actually, such as carrying a pencil from your house to downtown, might be considered work, whereas moving a a thing of furniture is not considered work. So the Chalku Allah, the Ramban argues on him, and the Rashba, they say that there was never a tekiah, there was never a blowing of the shofar after Shabbos. It was only when Shabbos started. So now, what needs to be investigated is what was the source for this? Why did they blow a shofar, specifically a shofar? Why did they blow it in this way, almost like similar to the way it's blown in Rosh Hashanah? Why not just make it kind of like a tornado siren? Why blow it in this specific way? Anyways, Kate said, how would they do it? The Rambam writes, they would blow in a high place, like someone would go on top of a mountain. And the reason why they went to a high place was so that people in the entire city would be able to hear it. Not only that city, but even people behind the city and surrounding the city. So the first time they would blow it about a half hour after midday. They would blow it by Mincha Gedola. Now the 30 minutes doesn't actually mean 30 minutes. A half hour doesn't actually mean a half hour. But if sunrise is 6 a.m., sunset is 6 p.m., if the day is exactly 12 hours long, then each hour is an actual hour. Each hour is 60 minutes. There's 60 minutes to an hour. Now, but 60 minutes to an hour, as easy as that sounds to most people, most of the year, according to the Jewish law, there's not 60 minutes to an hour. In fact, in the month of December, there's in the city of Chicago, there's only 45 minutes to an hour. You divide the hours from sunrise to sunset into 12, and you that's how you come up with how many minutes there are in an hour. And in the summertime, there's about 76 minutes to an hour, and on June 21st. So therefore, a half hour is 38 minutes. 38 minutes after midday. And because of daylight savings time, midday here in Chicago is approximately 1 o'clock. Not all cities have it at 1 o'clock. You go to South Bend, Indiana, it's closer to 2 o'clock. Same thing with Cincinnati. But talking about 38 minutes, so about 1:38 in the summertime, that's when they would, if this would be done in Chicago, they would be blowing the shofar at 1:38. If in the wintertime, when midday is at noon and a half hour is only 23 minutes, so they would be blowing it at 12:23. Now, so they would blow the shofar. But after they blew the shofar for the first time, the Aruch Hashulchan is quoting from the Rambam, and he says that the people would hold back from working in the field. The people who were working in the fields, I guess farmers, not other people. The stores stayed open. But the people who were working in the fields, plowing the fields, they would stop doing their malacha. That's what was supposed to happen. This was to warn them Shabbos is coming. Now it's time for you to stop doing malacha. Now here's the thing, however. Actually, it seems like they would actually continue to do the malacha until the people who were in the far away from the city found out that they're not allowed to be in the field, and then they started to come back to the city. The way I envision it, and maybe this is not correct, I'll think about it more over the next day or two and see if I still think like this, is that once the people in the city saw that it was rush hour, that the other people were returning to the city, at that time, that's when they left their fields. The reason is because otherwise the Chachamim, the rabbis, were worried that there would be chshad, which means people would suspect other people of inappropriate behavior. The question is, who's going to be suspecting who? So the way I envision it right now is that the people in the city would be suspecting that the people outside the city are not following because they never saw anyone from outside the city come back to the city, and who even knows if they heard the shofar, they're probably still working. So we would wait. We wanted them, the people in the fields in the city, specifically them, we wanted them to see that the other people actually are returning home, and only then would they return home. That's the way I'm thinking right now. Maybe it's right, maybe it's not, but that's what seems to make sense to me right now. Going on, the second time they would blow the shofar, which we're going to learn, it seems like the purpose of blowing the shofar The reason there had to be a sound. The sound was an announcement. We're going to see that in future generations, it wasn't the shofar. It was someone actually made an announcement. That's what happened. In shul, someone would actually make the announcement. It seems like the reason why it had to be a shofar is so that it's nicker, that it's recognizable that this really is an announcement about Shabbos, and it's not just some guy blowing the trumpet on top of a mountain. Because you might have someone blowing a trumpet on top of the mountain, but if he blows the shofar, if he would only blow a shofar once, you might think it's some type of tornado siren. You can't blow the shofar only tekiah. One tekiah, actually, a tekiah gedola sounds exactly like a tornado siren. Okay, I know they didn't have tornado sirens in those days, but that's what it sounds like. A trua is like 9 very short tekiyahs. So it's like beep, 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 beep. So if you only hear a trua, then, I don't know, the tekiah is what gets people's attention. They hear a siren. Now their attention, what is this? Then they hear a trua, they hear that. Then they hear another tekiah. Then they do it again. They know, okay, this is the shofar. This is what they hear on Rosh Hashanah. The beginning of every Jewish New Year, there's a commandment to listen to the blowing of the shofar, the blowing of a ram's horn. We listen to 100 different types of blows. Some of them are similar, some of them are not. So when they would hear this, then people knew this is not just some guy blowing the trumpet. This was actually some type of announcement that Shabbos is coming. That's the way I'm understanding it right now. Maybe I'm going to think of something different over the next couple of days. Okay, anyways, okay, so the second time, so the first time they blew the shofar, it was so that people in the fields would stop working. Okay, but the people in the stores apparently were allowed to continue working. We would have to work on why that should be. Okay, we'll have to think about that. But, so the second tekiah was done, the second time they blew it was done by Mincha Ketana. Mincha Ketana is 2.5 hours before sunset. And again, 2.5 hours means 2.5 hours only if the day is 12 hours long. But here in the summertime, about now, when the days are as long as can be, an hour is just about 76 minutes here in Chicago. So 2.5 hours is going to actually be 3 hours and 18 minutes. So it would be about 5:12 p.m. That's when they blow 8:30, let's say 8:30 sunset. We're not quite there yet, but we will be there soon. 8:30, let's say sunset, so 5:12, that's when they're going to be blowing, making like the second announcement so that people have to stop doing their work. And this was done for... at that time, people would close their stores. The source for this is in the Gemara and in the Talmud and tractate. I believe it's Shabbos, the tractate that speaks about the Sabbath, and it's on Daf Lamed Hey Amid Beis, so it's page 35, and it's on each page in the Talmud. Each one has A and a B. Instead of the way books are written nowadays where you have 35, 36, 37, 38, it goes 35A, 35B, then 36. So this was written on 35B, okay, 11, Lamed Hey B, 30, okay, Ubale Malachos, the people who were working in the city, they would stop. So the stores were closed. The people working in the city would stop doing their work. So this again would happen let's put it at a perfect day so it's easier to follow. 6 to 6. 6 a.m. is sunrise, 6 p.m. is sunset. So candles are lit around 6:10 p.m. Shabbos starts 6:30 p.m., maybe a little bit earlier. So we have the first shofar is blown at 12:30. That's when the farmers stop working and the farmers, let's say that's blown at 12:30. I don't know how long it takes before the people in the counties heard the shofar. I don't know how they heard it. If maybe there was someone else over there that would hear the first shofar, then they would hear it. I don't know. But so the people living in the city the farmers close by did not stop at 12:30. The farmers far away didn't stop at 12:30 either. The shofar was blown at 12:30. Then it took a little bit, until the farmers who are in the outer counties heard and they stopped. That's what I think. Or you could say maybe they did stop right away. They heard it right away, perhaps. But the farmers closer to the city, they didn't stop until they saw the farmers which were from far away coming towards the city. So I don't know exactly what time they would stop. So, okay, but now we have the stores would close after hearing the second announcement. I don't know if they would close right away. Maybe they were given 30 minutes to close, something like that. So the second announcement that came on a perfect day, we're saying it's at 3:30. 3:30, so 6 o'clock is sunset, 4:45 is Plag Mincha, 3:30 is Mincha Ketana. Okay. So they would close the stores, and people doing malacha that were in the city, maybe if there were electricians, there were no electricians, but I don't know what they were, water carriers or builders of houses. So they would stop doing their work. And afterwards, after a period of time, and he doesn't say exactly when, they would blow the shofar again for the third time. And I think each time they blew the shofar, they blew it 6 times, I think. It was a tekiah, which is like a tornado siren, a trua, which is like 9 short little beeps, then a tekiah, like another little like a 10, 20-second tornado siren, although some people could do it up to 45 seconds. A tekiah gedola could be up to 45 seconds. And then they would do that again, and that was that. And then the second time they did that, and then the third time they did it. All right. And at that time, when they blew it the third time, which was on a perfect day, it was after 3:30. 3:30 is when the stores would close. 3:30 is when the announcement came, close your stores. Okay? Then people were given time to close the stores. Let's say they were given 30 minutes. So 4 o'clock, they closed the store. Maybe they were given an additional 30 minutes to get home. I don't know. So let's say at 4:30, there's another shofar that's blown. Now, this shofar that's blown is to tell people, take your cooked meat off the stove. That's what it was. Take your, take it off the stove. Okay. And cover it up. Cover up, insulate, do a hatmana, the food that you have. Insulate it, cover it for tomorrow. Okay. Now, then they would light the candles, and afterwards, they would roast a small fish. They would wait a little bit of time in order to roast a small fish. So that's something that I need to work on why they did hadlakas neros first, and then shouldn't they have done the fish before hadlakas neros? They should have. How could they be roasting a fish after hadlakas neros? So that's something that needs to be worked on. But okay, they blew, and when they blew again, they blew a tekiah, which is a tekiah, a trua, and a tekiah, and then they accepted upon themselves Shabbos. Okay, the one who blew the shofar would drop the shofar on top of the mountain. Now, Dovi's going to tell us why he would drop the shofar on top of the mountain, and if he's not, then I'll let everybody know. Because he accepted Shabbos. Right then, you accept Shabbos. So now the shofar is muksa. The ram's horn is muksa. Muksa is something that you're not allowed to move. Right, you're not allowed to move on Shabbos. So you drop the shofar right on top of the mountain. He would hide it, okay, and then he would return to his house. He wasn't able to bring the shofar back to his house. Now, the Rambam left out that part, but that's what the Gemara says. The Aruch Hashulchan tells us he doesn't know why the Rambam left it out, but the Rambam left it out. Now, what happens when Yontif falls out Erev Shabbos? They still blew the shofar. Even when Yontif fell out Erev Shabbos, they still blew the shofar. And the reason is because there's more Kedusha to Shabbos than Yontif. So I once had a Rebbe in 4th grade, Rabbi Herber. He said that one of the ways to, I think this is what he said, but maybe it's what someone said as an explanation to something he said, that if one wants to know how much Kedusha a day has, you look at how many aliyahs there are to that day. Okay, so on Yontif there's 5 aliyahs. On Yom Kippur there's 6 aliyahs, and on Shabbos we have 7 aliyahs. So we see that Yontif, which is like the first 2 days of Passover, the first 2 days of Sukkot, Yontif, these are days which are very, halachically, in Jewish law, they're very similar. The things you're allowed to do and not allowed to do are very similar to Shabbos, to the Sabbath, but it's a little bit more lenient in many ways, such as in areas of cooking and in terms of carrying. Those 2 ways in particular, it's a little bit more lenient. So the holiness, the Kedusha of Shabbos is more stringent. The holiness of Shabbos there's more holiness to Shabbos. Therefore, the way it worked is that when it was Yontif, and that was going into Shabbos, you have the second day of Passover was on a Friday, or the first day in Eretz Yisrael, in Israel, there's only 1 day of Yontif for Passover in the beginning and 1 day at the end. So you have that 1 day falls out on a Friday, and then you have Saturday, which is the Sabbath. So they still blew the shofar on Friday. The Aruch Hashulchan is going to tell us he thinks they only blew it once, because they only needed to blow it once. There's nobody working in their farm anyways. There's nobody working at the store, but there are people cooking. So they needed to blow it that one time because there were people cooking. However, when Yontif falls out on Sunday, so then they did not blow the shofar on Shabbos to warn people about Yontif on Sunday, because over there you're going down in holiness. So the only time they blew the shofar is when you're going up in holiness. Now he does not discuss what they did before Yontif. What about you have a regular Yontif? You have the first day of Passover is on a Thursday. The day before that is a regular Wednesday. Did they blow it on Wednesday? So he doesn't discuss that. Okay. So when so he says the near. Okay, he tells us that he thinks they only blew it once. Now, over Motze, and when Shabbos was over, they did not blow it at all, even when Yontif fell out on Sunday, because. Okay, so we said all that already. So the Ramah writes that the minhag in the holy congregations, in the Kiyos Kedoshos, is we don't do that anymore. We no longer blow the shofar, but about an hour close to Shabbos, the Shliach Tzibor, it's translated as the one whom the congregation sent to be like a messenger to pray on behalf of the congregation, but he could also be the one who makes the announcements in the synagogue, in the shul. He would announce, go prepare yourselves for Shabbos. Go prepare yourself for the Sabbath. So I guess we were talking about a time period where the majority of people perhaps came to the synagogue Friday afternoon. And it must be that maybe the afternoon service, the mincha, perhaps was said early, or for whatever reason people were around. It doesn't actually say that it was done in shul, actually, but when it uses but it had to have been, because it's using the word shliach tzibor, which is the person who was davening, on behalf of the congregation. So this was done instead of blowing the shofar, and that's the way, says the Ramah. That's what people should do. Okay. Now, usually we do follow what the Ramah says, but over here we don't. So says the Aruch Hashulchan, the achshav nowadays gam zeh efshar. Also, this is impossible. It's not going to work. I think what he means by impossible is that it's not going to be effective. We're not there. We're in the marketplace. Ach anu sholchin ish miyuchad. What do we do now? So this is, I guess, what they did over there. We send a specific person who goes to the marketplace to get people out of the marketplace and from the stores. Okay, now, the question is, are we referring to the store owners or the people shopping? So we're referring to the shoppers. We're not referring to the store owners. And you're going to see, because Kiyesh Bezek Godel Hamachshil, this stores and shopping presents an enormous stumbling block when it comes to keeping Shabbos. Shopping Friday afternoon, and this is the reason why. Does anyone want to say the reason why? Why shopping Friday afternoon is a tremendous stumbling block for people in regards to keeping Shabbos. Okay, get carried away. Now why? He's going to say why. Why do people get carried away? Shapirov le'es erev, because for the majority of people, when it gets night as evening approaches, Maisa hasatan, Goyrem sheyavo liknos v'tzarech lezeh hitzchazkos harbe. The Satan will cause people all of a sudden, they're like, oh, we need this and we need that. We have a rabbit and we need food for the rabbit. Just go out and get something. It's minutes before sunset. That's what we need. So he's saying these things are not real needs, but people think they are real needs. The Satan makes it seem like you really need it. If you look harder, you'll probably find the thing in your house. But Ubaruhu, and it's clear, he says that Shabbos will pay you back. If you're careful in this, Shabbos will pay you back. So I think he's saying, like, you think you need this, you'll see. Shabbos will give you more than what you need. You'll see. Okay, now he says something which is very interesting over here. He says, and a person should say the prayers of accepting the Shabbos, of Kabbalah Shabbos and Mariv, daven the evening service while it's still day, meaning before sunset. This is something that we do not do during the week. It's strongly discouraged. We're strongly discouraged from doing this during the week because a person does not fulfill the mitzvah. They do not fulfill the commandment of saying the Kriya Shema Bizmano, of saying certain scripture, certain verses in the Torah. There's a commandment to say certain verses in the Torah within a certain time period, and that time period is to say it after the stars come out. So that's one reason why we're discouraged. There's other reasons too why at the very least we should say it after sunset. But here he says you should say it be'od yom, and usually be'od yom means while it's still day. Usually that means before sunset, in which case if you are going to say the evening service Mariv before sunset, we usually encourage people to say Mincha, the afternoon service, before something called Plaga Mincha, which is an hour and 15 minutes before sunset, because according to at least one opinion in the Gemara, one opinion in the Talmud, says that the day actually ends at Plaga Mincha. The day doesn't end at sunset. According to one opinion, the day ends an hour and 15 minutes before sunset. So at least even though we don't follow that opinion, generally speaking, but there is such an opinion. So if we're going to be davening the evening service, we're going to be davening Mariv before Shkia anyways, before sunset. So we might as well just be consistent in who we are following and not daven Mincha after Plaga Mincha. We might as well just be consistent and pray the afternoon service before what's called Plaga Mincha, before an hour and 15 minutes before sunset. That way we're being consistent. Where he says, okay, that way we do it. Not all synagogues do it that way. Some actually do both. They daven both. They pray both the mincha, the afternoon service, and Mariv, the evening service. Both of them are done within the same time period. When it comes to Friday night, and we're going to see, because on Friday night there's good room to allow leniencies, and it's because of this. He says, "The ein lahamti." You should daven early. Pray early. Ve'ein lahamtin al adam gadol. Don't wait for the adam gadol, the great Rav of the city. Don't wait for him. Usually, because of derech eretz, because it's a good menschlichkeit character trait. It's we wait for the rabbi to come in before we start davening. But in this case, don't wait for him. If he hasn't come to shul, don't wait for him, just start. With chus kadoho, this is a great merit that comes from the Magen Avram. Now, the Aruch Hashulchan says, Uba avono seno harabim, and in our great sins, we delay davening very late, and we do it with good intentions. The chayshvin zel mitzvah, and we think that this is a mitzvah. We think this is a good thing. We're fulfilling a commandment. We think because by davening late, by saying the prayers late, we're doing ma'ariv bismano. We're praying the evening service in its proper time, according to all opinions. And we're going to also be fulfilling the commandment of saying Kriya Shema within its proper time, saying those verses from Scripture in its proper time. And that's what we do the other nights of the week. He says, "V'oy vavoy lemitzvah zu," but this mitzvah, that mitzvah that we're doing, that we're being extra careful on, trying to make sure we say Marav in its proper time. That's okay. It's a mitzvah, but this is not oy vavoy. It's not good. Like, woe to us for trying to keep that mitzvah. Because by doing this, kizel baduk umenusa, which I've translated it as this has been checked and tested. I was told that there's a better translation for it, but either way, the gist of it is that we see with our own eyes Sha'ayidei Kain, by making Marav late, Ba'im L'chil Shabbos. This comes to the desecration of the Sabbath. Rabin, many people may Anshei Ha'ir, from the people of the city. And he's already explained earlier that whatever time the Rav, the great rabbi of the city, would light the candles, would accept Shabbos, the people are going to do it later. So whatever the city does, people are going to do it later. Or at least some of the people are going to be late. So the city, as a congregation as a whole, should do it very early. That way, when the people who are doing it late, even if they're late, they're still going to end up doing it before sunset. They're still going to end up accepting Shabbos upon themselves before sunset. Okay. The Kvar Ha'arach that we already had in Aricha, we already spoke at length about this in Siman Reish Beis 242. The Ashrei Enosh Yaseh, praiseworthy is the person who does this. Yasezos, these amit, he strengthens himself. She spalu Marav be'od yom. He davens Marav, the evening service, while it's still day. Something which is discouraged to do the rest of the week, but Friday night we encourage it by all people, even if the person knows that he's not going to desecrate the Sabbath, because he's also part of a community. And to a certain extent, we all have a responsibility on each other. As a community, we have to do this early to make sure as a community we're keeping the Sabbath, we're keeping Shabbos. The Ein Ketzasachro, his reward for doing so will be infinite. There's no end to the reward. The Shabbos Tamlitz Alav. These are the words of the Aruch Hashulchan. The Aruch Hashulchan was a Rav, he was a rabbi of a synagogue, so he was very in touch with the people of the city and all different types of people, and perhaps that's one reason why he comes out so strong on doing this, because not everyone does it this way. If you're going to be davening the evening service before sunset, which is what he's encouraging, then you should daven the afternoon service before what's called Plag HaMincha. Now, he doesn't talk about that at all. And in cities like St. Louis, the shuls, except for the Chabad, the shuls start at 7 o'clock. We have shuls even here in Chicago. They start at 7 o'clock no matter what, which means they're davening Mincha. They're saying the afternoon service after Plag HaMincha, but they're davening Mar before sunset. Perhaps what he's saying here is that the main thing, what's the crucial thing Friday, all we're looking for is let's set up a time that will prevent the least amount of Chilul Shabbos, of desecration of the Sabbath, or set up a time that there will be no desecration of Sabbath. And here's the thing. The problem with doing the Plag HaMincha thing is that the times change every week. So, but if you have the same time every single week, it's always 7 o'clock. So then everybody knows, it's in their heads, it's like Shabbos starts 7 o'clock. That's what people think. Really, Shabbos starts 8:30. But in their minds, they think it starts 7 o'clock. Every week it's 7 o'clock. Like, that's the time. It's 7 o'clock. That's when everyone is in synagogue. That's when everyone's in shul. So by making it a set time, it's in terms of Shmir Shabbos, it's actually better to do it that way. in human psychology, it would be better to do it that way. Even once you go ahead and say Shabbos is the main thing, let's forget about Mariv in the proper time, and then certainly the Mincha, before Plaga Mincha, forget about all, let's just focus on Shabbos, Shabbos, Shabbos. If you want to focus just on Shabbos, 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 the best way to do it is have a set time every single week at 7 o'clock. So according to the way, to this thought is my own, that thought of the 7 o'clock. I'm using this to be mlamitz chus on, because a lot of people have a difficulty. How could you have a 7 o'clock mincha? Grant, you want to daven early, so daven early. Go ahead and have an early prayer service, but make sure at least you do the afternoon services before plaga mincha. And then, okay, how can you have a 7 o'clock thing? No, because here's a reason. I'm offering a reason, suggesting a reason perhaps why, not just to allow the 7 o'clock thing, but to encourage everyone to do the 7 o'clock thing. Because at least according to this Aruch Hashulchan, who was a Rav, he was very in touch with what was going on in his community. He said he saw Chil Shabbos, he saw these things happening, and the name of the game here, this whole thing is Shabbos, Shabbos, Shabbos. That's the name of the game. And if you make that's the main player here, then you set up the times according to what will produce the greatest outcome for Shmir Shabbos. What time? And the best thing, perhaps one could say, is having a set time well before. It has to be that accepting the Shabbos comes after Plag HaMincha, but that is happening. That's for sure happening, because Plag HaMincha is before 7 o'clock. But, so here you have a set time. It's always after Plag HaMincha. You're always allowed to be Makabel Shabbos at the time. You could always accept it at that time. And we're going to say the afternoon services, and we're going to do something. It's not really, on one hand, it's not really so good in regards to the prayers, which is rabbinical, but we're not worried about that at all. We can't be worried about that at all. Our focus these days has to completely be on Shabbos. We have to be in touch with what the people of our generation go through. And by making a set time, if all of the shuls, that's the only thing that was available, was 7 o'clock, so then that would lead to less Shmir Shabbos. The only thing to say on this is that if all the shuls, all the synagogues start at 7, then there's another law that Shabbos for that city actually starts at the time the Kehila says it has it starting. So there does have to be, seemingly, there has to be at least one minyan, one synagogue, one small synagogue that's going to have it starting late towards sunset. So at least, in order for nobody to desecrate the Sabbath, you do need to have one place where there's a late minyan. So this would be Malabed Schust. We are finding merit on those that have a late minyan. So they're offering a tremendous service to the whole community, because now there's going to be even less people. Meaning that late minyan should consist of Yarei Shemayim, people who will never be Mechal Shabbos. Have them go to the late minyan, the late services. So now Shabbos starts at sunset. If all of the synagogues would accept Shabbos early, Shabbos no longer starts at sunset. Shabbos starts when the community accepts Shabbos upon themselves. But if there's at least one, even if it's a tiny synagogue with just 10 people, only one which accepts Shabbos right around sunset, a little before sunset, so then Shabbos in that city starts at sunset, and then the rest of the places have their minyanim at 7. So then that would be the best setup to minimize Chil Shabbos. Perhaps one could say that you should just have all three. You have one that keeps the Plag and Mincha. Another way. Here's another way to do it. This way might even be better. And this is also done in St. Louis. You have some of the people in the Kollel, they have a minyan. They daven the afternoon service many hours. They daven before they have a separate afternoon service many hours before. I think it's at 3:30. So this way, when does the evening services start for Shabbat? 7. It always starts at 7. Everyone knows you have to be in shul by 7. And at the same time, so you have a set time for that. At the same time, they're also saying mincha, davening the afternoon service before plag, because they have a set time to daven mincha, 3:30, or whatever time they daven, 3:30. Okay, so that would work as well. That might even be the best way to do it. So with that, again, there were a couple things that I don't have perfect clarity on. Maybe over the next couple of days, I'll develop another thought and we will clear that up. Okay. One other thought that I had in regards to this is that, so we see from this Aruch Hashulchan, we see that seemingly the purpose of these shofars, of blowing the ram horn, was to inform people and prepare them, tell them to prepare that for Shabbos, and it was to warn them to do that. And then when that became ineffective, so then the system got changed, and the Shliach Tzibur, somebody announced in the synagogue, go home and prepare for Shabbos. Then when that became ineffective, so then they sent someone else out to the marketplace. And now none of these things would work right now, but I just wanted to suggest there is something that might work. Hashem put in our world, everything in the world, we have physicality, and it's a reflection of the spirituality, but we're supposed to learn from physicality. We don't even have to go on to that. Just, we can learn from the way the world does things. Learn from the tornado warning. What happens when you have a tornado warning? The cell phones, a lot of the cell phones get these emergency alerts. They get these emergency alerts. So perhaps a system could be set up where some type of emergency alert goes out to everybody's cell phone, just like instead of the shofar being blown, an emergency alert which says the exact same things almost like that you would hear in a tornado warning. People stay home, don't go out shopping, it is close to Shabbos. Warning, you might get stuck even if you think you have enough time. Issue some type of a warning, come up with a way to warn people that, I think what the Aruch Hashulchan said is very, very good. He says it's from the Satan that people all of a sudden, right before Shabbos, there's needs that they never thought of before. And it's a real necessity. That's what it feels like. So and there will always appear like there's enough time to do it. And technically there probably is, but you have to prepare for worst case scenarios, and people end up having to walk home, different things like that. So if there would be some type of, if we can do that nowadays, I don't know if there's anybody in a position that is able, I don't know who sends these things out and who does these things, but we don't have any there's no from Jew working for the National Weather Service that could, or even be mechalik. You could be on the warnings. You could be mechalik between. You could have the radio go off by this warning and not by that warning. There's something to work with, maybe in the times of the Mashiach, but maybe even before. Maybe there's something that could be done nowadays, which with the cell phones, a calling post. Why not? A tag, but more like a warning, like a loud beep, something like that. Okay, that's just a thought that I had. Thank you for listening. Have a good Nacht.